Good afternoon, everyone. Moving on to our next session, I would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Vice President Technology, TCB Bank. Over to you, sir. So, can you please turn on your camera? Yes. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, Saurabh, you're audible.
Okay. So, I would like to invite Ms. Meghna Bal, fellow Esya, and Mr. Ravi Chamria, CEO Zeeve, to join us on stage. Hi, Meghna. Hi, Ravi.
Hi. Hi, Saurabh. Hi,
Hi.
Prasanna. Hi, Ravi.
Hi.
Yeah, I think Ravi and Meghna, we can start, right?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, great. So, very good afternoon, everybody. Welcome you all for the panel discussion wherein we're going to talk a lot about Web3 fundamental shift. We have Ravi and Meghna out here. So I think Ravi and Meghna, if you look at the journey of internet, right? Internet one or internet two or internet three, people these days differentiate a lot based upon how consumer behavior is changing over a period of a lot of new technologies are coming in. So primarily as a consumer, for me, Internet 1.0 is all about how it was for HTML computer networks, right? Over a one organization, how do you have a LAN with a novel network or a rise of Windows NT and so on. I think real magic has started, or we have seen a lot of new business models with the Web 2.0. Right, I remember still those days when somebody has created my first email ID, and I was so happy throughout the day. Right, so and today if I create one more email ID for Ravi, Ravi will say, "What is this all about?" Right, as a consumer, this is just maybe tomorrow we'll talk to our generation. At once upon a time we used to send emails to all of our friends and so on. So I think then we have seen rise of lots of chat Yahoo messengers, India's one of those first e-commerce site bazi.com, Reddit mails. I think that was the era, and I think today over a period of last 20 years since internet has become a commodity, most of our rather most every business model is on internet, right? And I think with the rise of Android and iOS in 2007-8, which was a path-breaking innovation for that decade, and we are still surviving with that innovation. We can't live without iOS or Android phones. And all of a sudden, since last 2-3 years, we are talking about a new wave, cryptos, blockchains. We are talking about. I think this since Facebook has changed their branding to the Meta, I think people feel that we're gonna really get into new wave, right? So Web3 for me, it's all about experiences, right? So what we have say connecting people over a period of since born of a Orkut or a Facebook, right, which we have seen those days. Maybe while we are moving ahead, 5G kind of a technology attached with augmented virtual reality will take experience level to the certainly to the next level. Then a lot of challenges will appear, right? So maybe when internet has started or when we have seen Facebook's, anybody could create their identity, right? I think those were the era, like fake identities and so many things. So I think while we get into one generation to another generation of a wave, we have other challenges while we are enjoying those benefits of that technology. So let's understand what is in by Web 3.0, right? So Ravi, over to you. Can you just guide us what is your view on Web3 and why all of a sudden people are talking about those buzzwords, right? Metaverse, virtual reality, how it is going to really change? What was there and why it is changing? Why it is so important? Yeah, Ravi, over to you.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So, as you see, as Prasanna also mentioned, in the Web 1.0, Web 2.0, we were talking about exchanging information over the internet. We were, and then later on, moving static information to e-commerce came in, and then social interaction started happening through different social networking, mobility, etc. Web 3.0 typically brings in one, it has made internet pervasive. So internet will penetrate into everything that we see, whether it be humans, whether it be objects, whether it be devices, etc. And the second piece of Web3 is that it allows exchange of value over the internet. That is a paradigm shift if we compare it to Web 1.2 and 2.0. And the third area that I'd see is that the way some of the DLT protocols like blockchain has come in, it brings in a lot of trustless, open, censorship-resistant kind of networks, which can enable a lot of interaction without involving intermediaries. Sorry, my neighbor's dog is barking. Yeah, so this is what in a short, Web3 is a paradigm shift. It's a transformational where new business models are coming in, whether it be DeFi in the case of financial space, or whether we talk about NFTs, how they are revolutionizing, whether we are talking about new immersive experiences through metaverses, and if you talk about decentralized identity, or self-sovereign identity, where people have one unique identity across the world. So it's of course, it's reducing the barriers to join the ecosystem. It's moving the power from the center to the periphery. So that is how I would put
Yeah, I think absolutely right. So, Meghna, what's your view around Web 3.0, how it is going to really change? I think Internet 2.0 was all about cloud computing, social media. These days, we talk a lot about, or mobile apps, right? So, how the behavior will change while we're in the land of, I think Ravi has spoken that internet will be penetrated not only in the services of human beings, but also on machines, right? So, how do we look at as a lawyer this area?
Right. So I agree absolutely with Ravi that it presents a paradigm where you have a more democratized construct of value in the online world. So there are um, there are in fact applications that have been developed, Web3 applications that have been developed, where people can start monetizing their own data, and they will also be able to possibly track the movement of their data across the internet, which in turn will then render some constructs of, let's say, privacy law obsolete. It will also raise new challenges because Web3 and all the constructs that you mentioned earlier, such as the metaverse, etc., will present a more immersive technological experience. So um, how regulations, how regulators and different decision makers will be able to tackle the challenges presented by it is something that remains to be seen. I can speak more specifically on different aspects of it. I will say that, um, especially because of crypto being seen as an asset, people kind of restrict their regulatory lens to its financial aspects, and that becomes problematic because it leaves a lot of other important components of the market out in the fray. Of course, anti money laundering, countering terror finance, all these regulations are important to institute. I'm not saying that you shouldn't institute them. I'm just saying that regulators, when they approach an emerging technology, be it crypto, be it anything, should have a broader lens. They should seek to, let's say, classify assets in a way that ensures that existing as well as upcoming assets are accommodated, and there is regulatory certainty slash clarity for all assets that are currently in play. And
Yeah.
finally, yeah, and finally, sorry.
So I think. I have a view, right? Meghna, you spoke a lot about regulatory, and I have a view. I am an innovator, right? I'm not so big fan of regulations, right? So see, as a crypto, or a big fan of blockchain technologies or AI, and I am away from regulation. I want to really innovate, and whenever regulation comes, innovation index goes down, right? So regulation is really required so that overall ecosystem goes on to the next level, right? And regulation should be always supporting the innovation, right? Now, say example, our friend Mark Zuckerberg has announced that Facebook is now becoming Meta, and all of a sudden he is getting some challenges around privacy concerns, right? So is he going in the right direction? This is the same guy who has created lots of memories for us during the through Facebook. Now he wants to take those memories to the experiences, right? So are we diminishing that kind of a experience, or like how it is exactly, right? So see, to create any ecosystem, say example, it's an opportunity for new technologies, new innovators. Never know. We are now talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who was part of a Web 2.0. Now he is getting into Web 3.0, right? So what could be the approach for overall ecosystem? I am sure I am a big fan of regulations wherever the fundamental rights are getting tarnished because of any of the technologies, right? How much to automate through AI, that can be decided by regulation for sure, right? But if overall, say example, 17 sustainable goals, right? So we want to meet them by 2030, right? One of those areas could be the experiences, financial inclusion. So what are those use cases which are typically for end user during Web 3.0, and how regulation can really support those use cases? So any idea around that?
Right. So I was actually getting to that. The job of regulation is to balance risk with innovation. So whatever risk some kind of emerging technology presents, those risks exist within the regulator's mind, but it has to be counterweighted or countermanded or counterbalanced against the opportunity presented by any kind of innovation. So typically, the approach that most regulators should take is to consider a market failure and consider ex post approaches, which means that or they take action after an incident has happened. The problem is that there's this emergent thinking within decision making apparatus that indicates that, oh, the internet is developing so fast, the metaverse is developing so fast, everything is moving so quickly, regulators are so far behind, we need to preempt, we need to put something in place to ensure that it doesn't get out of hand. But as we've seen that the unwieldiness of any kind of technological construct is rarely resolved by knee jerk interventions. I think India is a good example of that. So, really, it's about looking for market failures, understanding if there's a way to realign incentives within that market to ensure that your regulatory objectives can be met. So, making actors behave in a certain way, or giving some kind of incentive, creating some kind of incentive or choice architecture to make actors behave in a certain way. And if that fails, then yes, regulatory intervention is merited, but on an ex post basis, so on a case by case basis. So there's no blanket prescription. So I kind of disagree with you saying that deciding the extent of how much should be automated or anything like that, you shouldn't be looking to limit the potential of technology at the outset, right? So you should be looking more to, I guess, just meet market failures where when they come up, when they arise. Of course, you can prepare for them, but not try to preempt them. That I think is what generally
Yeah,
hurts.
I think excellent. So I think now you are changing my views, right? Earlier I said I'm not big fan of regulation, but why regulation is required for any technology? Say example, we talk about digital assets since last budget, right? Instead of a crypto, or there are a lot of other things. Indian governments are looking at how do we regulate some areas around that, right? So and at the same time, there are a lot of new technologies that we are utilizing for while we create Web3 applications. So Ravi, looking at the contribution of open source was huge in Web 2.0, right? We couldn't live with all any of those innovations what we have built so far. So is this the same kind of a momentum we'll see in Web 3.0? And how do we look at the overall collaboration? We had seen a lot of communities, right? So during Web 2.0, we have so many products built by these communities. So do you see same kind of a collaboration innovation will occur in open source, and do you see any new products will come up where GV and your company will leverage on these things? Yeah.
No, so absolutely. See, open source evolution started long back, and I fortunately had a chance to attend Linux Asia in 2004 and became a very big open source proponent at that time. And since 2004, I have personally and professionally both have worked with open source technologies only. Um, the thing is, when we talk about Web3, it is based on openness. So the whole philosophy is very much aligned to the whole copyleft or 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 open source development option. That's one. So open source means you bring in a lot of decentralization in terms of governance, in terms of trust. So it's not just words. It's basically you are bringing that into the technology architecture itself. So that's one part of the open source. The second part is that if you see most of the larger platforms or protocols in the Web3 space, they are all driven by community. So community when and community driven approach automatically goes well with open source. And the third is that most of the systems today, and if you take any decentralized app, whether it be a DeFi app or a metaverse app, everything starts as a centralized venture, right? So even if we could say DeFi is decentralized finance, but still there are some people who have deployed those contracts in the DApp, and they have full control over the funds which are there in the contract, right? And on top of it, which we require decentralized governance. And now the concept of DAO is coming in, and DAO is being basic, not just concept is coming in, DAO is being implemented. Like Uniswap Foundation was one of the leading player in the DeFi space who actually now have a working DAO where all the decisions, all the changes on the platform, etc., are governed by the token holders who are part of the DAO governance. So open source, community driven. These are the key ingredients, I would say. They are not separable now. They are not a choice when we talk about Web3.
I think Ravi, I took that word DAO, right? So can you just elaborate for our viewers what is meant by DAO and how the uh, various use cases will be built on DAO?
Yeah, so DAO is a very interesting concept. I've been part of a lot of research in this space. So DAO means decentralized autonomous organization, and I would say that DAO are the organizations of future. So if you see today, organizations are very hierarchical. They are centralized, and there's a top-down approach typically, and most of the power resides in the management, and that's how the whole decisions or processes and everything flows. When we talk about decentralized autonomous organization, it's more of a community-driven approach where a group of people have come together for a certain objective. So they have loosely formed an organization, and each member of that community or an organization has got certain rights, depending on how much incentives or how much work they have done towards that group. And based on that, the whole governance is decided by all the members of the group. So this is where we have basically taken the power from the centralized hierarchical organization to make it a decentralized organization. So I'll take an example which is already in practice. There are quite a few DAOs in the investment space. So just imagine it's so exciting that just imagine that 100 investors, they come together. There's a smart contract where they invest money into it, right? So they put in the funds, and they hold proportionate to the funds that they have put in into the contract. They hold the power to run the fund, right? So they have a voting power which is proportionate to the fund that they have put in. And then on the other side, startups can apply for those funds, and these token holders or the investors can vote on those startups. Based on that voting, very transparent openly through a smart contract, the funding take place. And this is already happening. Millions of dollars
Yes.
have already been funded through a DAO. And then in other areas, apart from investments, if you see any kind of community approach, social impact use cases, DeFi, wherever decentralized governance is required. So a lot of NFT marketplaces, if you talk about Rarible, which has got a decentralized governance. Yes, they are at a starting point. I would say not a very mature DAO, but yes, they are moving towards it.
So can you hear me now, Ravi?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think sorry, I think there was some disconnect in the. And do you see any practical challenges around DAO while we are experimenting a lot around DAO kind of ecosystem?
No, so challenges will always be there. What I see is that
Hello, am I audible?
no, in the present state, DAO is, as I said, it's in the stage where it is maturing. For some of the concept, it can be implemented in a very mature way, but for other pieces, there needs to be still offline and online combination that is required. Fortunately, we set up our entity in Wyoming, and one of the reason was that Wyoming state is very conducive to some of the crypto regulations, and one of them is DAO. They have approved, in fact, DAO, so there are a lot of DAO being incorporated. So just imagine a decentralized autonomous organization and also being incorporated as an entity. So that makes it easy because we need to be practical at this point of time. At this point of time, there will be interactions between fiat and crypto. They cannot operate in silos, right? Uh, yes, we are striving towards a complete decentralized kind of ecosystem, but these kind of friendly regulations and which brings in discipline and which prevents abuse of the technology, etc. They of course are most welcome in the system.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I think Meghna, I want a view from you side. Ki, say example in Web 2, we have seen Uber, Ola, Mastercard, Visa, and so many other ecosystems have built intermediaries, right? And we trust these intermediaries. And now all of a sudden, with the sharing economy, where we see some of the many more, I think entities will go on a sharing economy, like every business model will go on sharing economy while we'll land up in a 5G IoTs on those era. So do you have any suggestions, recommendation while we enter in sharing economy, how blockchain or how any of those trust machine relevant technologies can be helpful while we enter in Web 3.0?
I mean, yeah, I think I alluded to it earlier in the sense that
Yeah.
consumers can now also
Hmm.
monetize the data rather than it just being an intermediary capturing of the value. Um, and just to speak a little bit about the regulatory aspect of all of this or the legal aspect of all of this, particularly with decentralized finance, decentralized autonomous organizations, because regulators globally are quite concerned about the parameter or the ways in which these constructs will be overseen. I agree the Wyoming law is a great law. Essentially, what it does is it allows you to incorporate as a limited liability company, and you can either be member managed or algorithmically managed. And algorithmically managed DAOs, which are truly decentralized, may only be formed if the underlying smart contracts are capable of updates or modification. So what that implies is that there is some level of centralization or at least control that is exerted from an offline space, which I think serves as a bit of consolation to regulators, because otherwise, if it was completely decentralized and not had no real touch point with the real world, I can't see regulators being okay with it existing, especially if it's trading in value, and there are consumer protection considerations and security considerations at play. But I think this is very artfully kind of balanced the two considerations that I mentioned earlier, risk and opportunity. But yeah, I think that just again speaking about open source, so if you look at the Ethereum ecosystem, there are 2,918 decentralized applications on it. It's completely open source, which means that anyone with a bit of Ether and an internet connection can get on and start building. And according to another report, there are 18,416 active monthly developers on open source blockchain projects, and 34,391 have committed some kind of code in 2021. If you compare these numbers to the number of software engineers that, say, work for Google, which is about 18,000, or Facebook, which wouldn't need very many software engineers. I think they have like about 8,800 or something like that. These are closed ecosystems, and that is, I guess, the extent of their, you know, ability to absorb talent. But an open ecosystem like Ethereum, which is only about 7 years old, has been able to generate so many applications over a short period of time. And so, yeah, we're looking at a more democratized, hopefully more democratized, online space, in terms of value and in terms of talent development, and in terms of service development and provision as well. So,
I think great
Of
views. I
course, these are
think
the early days. These are very
yeah,
early
I
days.
think
However,
people
yeah.
will hear this conversation
implementation of
between
Metaverse.
Meghna and Ravi. I think we'll get a lot of more insights. I think in the finally, I wanted to understand from Ravi. So I think Ravi, you have seen blockchain 1.0, blockchain 2.0, and blockchain 3.0 also, right? So
Right.
how do you see how you have changed the gears while you are adopting every? I think you are one of those companies who adapted every type of generation of a blockchain, right? Yeah, over to you. Would like to see your interesting views around how you are entering now in Web3.
No, I think so. One just needs to have an innovative mindset.
Yeah.
Uh, Technologies will keep on coming in, innovations will keep on happening. I created my first email on Hotmail in 98. Got my first desktop in 98. That's how I got into this. Started my first .com in 98. Um, so of course, and now in Web3, we first initially got into this space in 2016. Initially focused on building enterprise applications, but saw that enterprises still will take a huge amount of time to actually see some real adoption happening. So then shifted our gear on the infrastructure side, and now Zeeve is one of the leading infrastructure Web3 infrastructure player in the world. On the permission side, in fact, we are the leading player in the world. More than 10,000 developers are using the platform. Plus, we have huge, big brands and names, both in the crypto space as well as enterprise space, who are using the platform. So it's basically a privacy and security driven Web3 infrastructure automation platform that allows anyone to spin off blockchain nodes or networks in a very automated way. So it's a next generation DevOps automation tool for the Web3 infrastructure.
You're on mute, Prasanna.
So primarily at the end of our discussion, I can conclude that while we have lived, I think last 15, 20 years on Web 2, and the next, and while we are dreaming of Web 4.0, I don't know what is going to be there, but I think Web 3.0 going to be very, very interesting time, right? Because all of these required technologies are being researched so heavily, blockchain, edge computing, you talk about 5G will gonna be a reality as far as India is concerned sooner or later. I think very huge things, and I really enjoyed discussion with you, Meghna and Ravi. I think our listeners must have understood what is meant by Web 3 exactly, fundamentally what are those use cases, importance of DAO, how open source community is collaborating to bring many more experiences around the Web 3.0. While we do all these things, importance of regulation or privacy concerns, and how regulators should really look at innovations brought in from the Web 3.0. While there could be some possibilities to really concerns around privacies, but for me, I think Web3 will bring on much more. It will ease out the security aspect. While because blockchain will be in underneath, and there will be a lot much trust around any of those use cases which will build on Web 3.0. So thank you so much for being in this discussion. Thank you so much, DSCI, for making it happen on time in 2022, while community is talking a lot about various concepts of Web 3.0. So this session must have been helpful for our viewers, listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everyone.